Mr. Chen, you had a very interesting talk. I have some questions, some ideas.
Okay.
Maybe first we can elaborate on the further future. You've been talking about past, 7 years ago. But I think the Internet of Things is also something that relates to RFID. Can you imagine for the public what would be the situation, say, in 10 years in our households based on RFID? What changes do you imagine?
Okay. Thank you. 我就用中文。
Well, I will answer that in Chinese. I'm sorry, I'm going to answer that in Chinese. Previously, all the applications for RFID took place in companies or enterprises. Very few RFID applications were seen in households. Now, most RFID-related technologies are high-frequency RFID technologies, or UHF RFID. Now, what we have is ultra-high-frequency RFID. So we have different technologies. For ultra-high frequency, for instance, your transportation card, the card you use for metro, they are high frequency. For instance, the Apple Pay, it's high frequency. And the difference between high frequency and ultra-high frequency is that it has higher secret protection, however shorter distance of identification. So this is how RFID has been used in households. As for UHF, well, actually, you don't feel it right now in household application. The UHF application is mostly in stores or in enterprises to bring better customer experience. However, there is very few UHF RFID application at household level. However, looking to the future, and what's happening now is that we are trying to put this RFID reader into smartphones so that in the future, with your smartphone, you could read RFID label so that once you enter a store, you could scan a product to make sure that it's a genuine product. If it's a canned drink, if it's a bottle of wine, you could scan it and know from which winery it was brewed and what kind of transportation it has gone through to arrive in the store. So this is the future trend that we are aiming at. Sometimes, for instance, if I'm looking for a certain item, for instance, my key, I don't know where I've put it. Radio RFID can be a possible solution. So in a store, you might be asking an assistant, "Do you have an XL size for this shirt? I cannot find it on the shelf." And then the assistant looks up in the computer and looks up in the inventory, and that would cost like 5 minutes, and for that time you may have already lost the customer. But for RFID, you could scan, and it could be item-based. You could find the one that you want really fast. So it helps you to locate the product that you want.
So these might be widely used, say, you will use your mobile phone to find your bank card or your keys. So these are the applications.
It would be very helpful for me. One other thing I thought about it, could it be that my fridge would tell me the milk I have in the fridge is too old? And could it even be that the fridge already ordered a new can of milk for me due to RFID?
是的，
That is true. We, yeah, some refrigerators already use RFID reader inside the fridge. So when your food has RFID label, and then the fridge can read all the things about the food, when it was produced, whether it's expiring, then there's a screen on the refrigerator and you can read it. So this is can be combined with, say, this is similar to the TTI technology. So this might even combine with the TTI technology. So we can quantify the information and can send it to the reader of RFID so that we will know what degree it has perished.
It brings me also to some threats, I think. Maybe the same fridge tells me or tells my daddy, if I'm young, that I'm taking the 10th can of beer for this week. And I don't like that to be announced. How do you think about privacy aspects of RFID? Or the retail shop knows that I always buy that type of beer and they offer me that type of potato chips because it belongs to it, marketing-wise.
我觉得是会的，但是
I think this would be a problem, but I don't really know what this will develop. So this brand owner and producer, they will be able to analyze the data, like which customer likes what kind of beer. They will collect the data so that they will be better manage the market. For example, like lots of people like this type of beer, and they will increase this type of beer's supply. And then for another type, they will produce less. However, privacy, yes, I think there will be laws, say maybe you can do the analysis unless the client allows you. So if the client is willing to share the data so that, say, it helps him to be, better managing its diet, better managing its health. For example, the fridge can tell you that your nutrition structure is not good. It might send you a signal that you need to buy more nutritious food.
One of the other threats I see, and many people in the world I think are more and more afraid from, say, radiation aspects. And this is also radio radiation. How do you think the public reacts on the broader use of RFID? And technically spoken, is there a danger or not?
So at the moment, RFID, because the labels has no radiation at all, just like that, this is an alien's technology, the UHF RFID. The label does not send any signal. So they don't have radiation at all. So the radiation will come from the readers. So at the moment, there's a global standard. So every country has its similar requirement. So the radiation sends out, it's similar to a mobile phone. So every day we're using mobile phone, right? So you receive the radiation from a mobile phone. So that would be the threshold for radiation. So everyone is using mobile phone. It has some radiation, but the impact is actually not concludable. So RF reader is the same as a mobile phone. So these are the governments, they are making these rules.
Thank you. One other maybe threat or maybe aspect to think about is waste. If you put RFID tokens in all packaging, they're metal, they're chips, computer chips in it. They end in the waste. Now we've been talking about bio-based packaging, about compostable packaging. I don't believe RFIDs will compost. How do you think about that? How can we handle that?
RFID technology, the label, it has several things. There's a chip, it's a silicon, and the label, Athena, the body is normally aluminum, and then attachment is PET. So aluminum has some impact on its recycling. So of course this will be something that we need to consider. Like your company is making the PaperFoam, we will do more research into it. Yeah, aluminum will have a negative impact in recycling.
Are there already ideas how to assemble the RFID chips? Can you collect them easily out of the packaging waste?
So most of the application, as long as the companies, if they don't want to recover them, then the consumers will dispose it at their will. It's like battery. So if they do not, the consumers don't want to recycle it or categorize them, then it will not be recovered. So we have not done this environmental protection work yet. Recover.
For the industry.
是的。
Maybe one final question about costing. You mentioned active components will cost tens of dollars, and passive components, I think tens of cents. How do you think the cost will evolve in time? Will it become cheaper? Because many food applications or the food itself is very cheap. It's below $1 per package. So even then, if an RFID chip is 5 cents, it's expensive. And I don't think it will be adapted in that industry then. Or do you expect price will run down below a cent?
RFID's technology has been developing many years. The technology has been improving and the cost has been going down. So in the process of upgrading, more and more industries are beginning to use that. How low can it drop to? We are not very certain at the moment. But what we can tell the client is that you need to think about two costs. One is the reader. You know, the good ones can be tens of thousands of dollars. For example, it needs to read thousands of labels at 1 second. But for the labels, just like I said, it will be like if has some data, it's less than 1 yuan. So that can be spread it out over the product. So if the product is not expensive, then probably you will not use that.
Maybe in the
Printing
future.
labels.
Maybe in the future, yeah, but at the moment, not yet. At the moment, for apparel, it is inserted in the apparel or in its label, or maybe inside your PaperFoam. So these are the things we are doing. As for cost, we'll tell our client. So compared to traditional ones, it's more expensive, but the value it adds is very high. So for an RFID label, it can start from the production, and then you can customize your production, and then to the warehouse, you will have the visual management and the traceability when the product's in the market, and the stores can also use it. So one label will be used throughout the life cycle of the product, and on each link it provides you value, so the cost can be spread out. So in some inexpensive product, clients are also using it. That is why. Thank you very much. 非常感谢。